Колеги, ми продовжуємо робочий день.
Dear friends, we continue our working day. The topic is the situation with the heating season, and it's my pleasure to invite Minister of Energy and Coal of Ukraine, Mr. Demchyshyn. Good afternoon. Happy to see you. I'm sorry. I do not have much time. That's why I will make very short statement that you may follow up very closely our statistics about the stocks of gas in the storages. Also, you know all the norms, heating norms existent in Ukraine. They are available at our websites. I believe that the stock of gas is sufficient. The consumption is not huge. Yesterday we took from the underground storages some 80 million cubic meters for heating. Of course, we continue our purchases from the west. The price is at the level of $190 per 1,000 cubic meters, which is considerably lower than the offer from Gazprom. Of course, there might be issues which may arise in future, but as of today, the situation is under control. I believe that as of today, we have sufficient stock to cope with the situation, with the winter situation. Nobody, of course, is able to predict how cold and how long will be the winter. Also, you know, the situation with coal. We have rather comfortable stock of coal. They are distributed more evenly today. Also, we expect to get T mark of coal in nearest future. We are expecting to have a boat in early February, which will bring up to 80,000 tons of this T-type coal. Currently, between 4 and 5 nuclear power blocks are under reconstruction and overhaul, which is normal for Ukraine. Also about the prices for fuel and oil. In our filling stations, in our gasoline stations, the price on fuels is not going down because the traders, they bought the oil before and gasoline before the oil prices went down. And it looks like producers of fuel had increased margins in their sector because they did not decrease prices because in case of the drop of oil prices. Also, the lag between production of oil and the moment when it arrives to the filling stations in the form of gasoline, this lag is at least 1 month. Nevertheless, we have established a working group which deals with this issue. Also, we have established a special working group on complaints and Specifically, this working group will deal with the quality of services and supplying heat, hot water, and we have ready the new laws on on electricity market and on natural gas market. We hope very much that the new law, the latest of these laws, which haven't passed, the Parliament be in October. It will be passed very soon this year. So now we shift to the questions. So please mention yourself. Victoria Lisecka, Channel 24. Today in the morning, Gazprom charged a new bill to you about because of the 2 billion of cubic meters and about tariffs for transportation of Russian gas via Ukrainian territory. There were rumors that it will be decreased. That's not tariff for the transit. This will be the tariff for transportation through the gas transportation system. This tariff will be calculated by the regulators. This will be around $4.5 per 100 kilometers. That's 50% higher than before. This idea is not new. This is called the tariff entry-exit. This is the position of Ukraine. Gazprom points out that the contract is already signed, but nevertheless, we try once again and again. That's not the first issue which is in the court. Now about the debts. In line with the contract which is signed, there are some provisions which are either complied with or are not complied with. In Stockholm, we have the proceedings. Currently, the Stockholm Arbitration Court is following very closely all these events. Of course, we spend much money on lawyers. You may find the exact figures in our annual report. 112 Ukraine channel. What is your position about electricity supplies to the occupied Crimea? Of course, additional load on our facilities was a positive for Ukraine, but nevertheless, I understand that this is political issue which recently, during the last 3 months, had became very sensitive. Had become very sensitive. Of course, our suggestion about the formulation in the contract was appeared unacceptable for the opposite party, so they rejected to sign it. And actually, we do not have the reasons for further negotiations. They're able to supply it because of the energy breach. They have their they have, of course, some issues with electric energy, but that's not our problem. And this is because of politics. In Russia, in general, Unfortunately, many problems from everyday life become political issues, and while Ukraine took its fundamental position. TSN 1+1. We have questions from residents of rural areas. For example, Khmelnytska Oblast. Khmelnytsk newspapers frighten people that now 349 cubic meters of gas are supplied to people at privileged prices, and there are rumors that people will be forced to pay for not used volumes, and if they do not use it this month, then next month they will be given less volume at a privileged price. I will explain you what do we have. There is a decision that 1,200 cubic meters to be supplied at privileged prices to people, to privileged population. That's why some oblgaz structures had a problem with October. But after 1 month, and the oblgazes informed all the customers who received incorrect bills, promised to recalculate the figure within all heating period. And you remember that October was warm, and the October was not full month. There is doubtful that ordinary people used 200 cubic meters in warm October. Please do not believe in these stories about limits, about used, non-used volumes, etc. The amount of gas limit is 1,200 cubic meters, which is to be supplied at a privileged price during the heating season. Nobody knows what will happen next winter. Віталій Крижевський, Українські новини. There was an information from the ministry that the ministry canceled the competitions for the leaders of some units. This was not the ministry. The new resolution was passed by the Cabinet of Ministers, which has changed the list of strategic enterprises. For those enterprises where nomination committees were not elected, all the competitions were canceled. But my preliminary review on the applications so they shows that these are more or less the same people. And when the Ministry of Economy will start this competition for the third time, this will be the same. In late 2015, There was some information about hacker attacks on your systems. Yes, there were some cyber attacks and some disruptions in the electronic systems. We gained a proper understanding how those cyber attacks were carried out. So IT teams in each Oblenerga implemented their measures. These attacks were observed in 3 Oblenergas, and during a day of 23rd of December, there were disruptions in the work of 3 Oblenerga. We involved also law enforcers to this events, to the analysis of these events. As of the moment, we are not ready to say who carried out these cyber attacks. There was a suspicion that this was an organized action, but nobody is able to prove or disapprove this in this very moment. Natalia Prudka, Главком. When we could expect to hear conclusions of the working group about nuclear waste from Rivnenska nuclear power plant. Can you imagine this lady can remember all these technical things? There is a working group who works on this issue. As of the moment, we are not ready to publicize its conclusions. We have very broad discussion. This is they contribute to the implementation of international agreement. This because they may influence our commitments to other states. That's why the work has to work very carefully, because this is sensitive issue as of the moment. We have to decide in what direction we should conduct future negotiations with other countries. For Russia, for example, during the last 20 years, the situation remained unchanged. There might be several options. There is opinion of the commission which was produced, but there is no final decision as to this opinion. But when it will be published a bit later, when we have the Krim Reali, my question is about Genichsk and electricity supplies to Genichsk. My question, whether the government is doing anything to get rid of supply of electricity supplies to Genichsk from the occupied Crimea. I think that all necessary measures are taken. What is the role of the state in this process? The role of the state is that we have found solution. So my question was, what do the state do now to prevent that this city would not suffer from politics in this area? I think that your question is incorrect. First of all, the city is located in the climate conditions where all the consumers use the individual heating. They do not have Obel Kommunenergo company. Several times I encouraged individual consumers to use electric energy more broader. Moreover, our night tariffs is more beneficial for consumers than using expensive natural gas. That's why all the consumers have sufficient commercial motivation to choose electricity as a main energy source. With our negotiations with local authorities, we recommended to use solid fuel boilers. For example, there is Plast Enterprise who is interested to have a local supply of gas. That's why it hindered this shift from gas to solid fuels, to electricity, etc. Unfortunately, I cannot hear his question. Let us step back about consumption. As of now, they produce 80,000 cubic meters per day. At the temperature not lower than -6 degrees Celsius, the consumption is not higher than average. The number of days when temperatures fall low than -6 is negligible. There is, on the other hand, they are able to transfer to other types of fuels, but because they have, since they have the interested company gas producer who is interested in stimulating demand for gas, this transition does not happen. We can build up a pipeline and waste state money, or we can use solid fuel boilers in several state companies. Actually, this is the responsibility of local council because they are in place and they know the needs. We have all necessary surveys of the situation. And the last question, dear colleagues, because the minister is pressed with time. Now back to the work on this commission about hacker attacks. Have the commission revealed what was the objective? No, it haven't. How many people did suffer from this cyber attack? There were tens of thousands of households which were cut off the electricity supply, not for a long period of time. When it appeared that Borispol also had the same file about black energy. This is for the first time when I hear about Borispol. That's not the issue of the Ministry of Energy to search for black energy, for white energy, cyber hackers. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Okay, the very last question. I have a microphone and I am coming to you. Dmitry Karnitsky, you mentioned that today we buy gas from Europe at the price of $190 per 1,000 cubic meters. As far as I remember the words of the Prime Minister, he mentioned that the prices for population will be lower. What is the exact price of the gas for NAK Naftogaz? There is the import price, $190 per 1,000 cubic meters. Let's multiply it at exchange rate. And how we should make decisions. Yesterday at one exchange rate, today at one exchange rate, you see the problem. Moreover, there are 730 hryvnia per transportation, also VAT, which is added. That's why so the tariffs will not become lower. I am not ready to answer this question because currently we're undergoing the auditing procedure. The auditing procedure has to set commercial targets for the next year. What shall I say to my readers? Whether the lowering of gas tariffs for the population, I cannot answer this question. I can make guesses, but there is no sense to make guesses by the moment when we have all the balances counted for the last year and for the next year. Currently, we have a heating season. January of the previous year was warmer than this one, and nobody is able to predict what will be the price in February. We should calculate how much do we consume, with what speed do we consume. Of course, I understand that you wish to know earlier, as soon as we know the answer to your question. This will be the very, very, very last question. The story with the Kharkiv Oblenergo and with the trash shares in Kharkiv Oblenergo. I am not in the border of Kharkiv Oblenergo. I do not know about what you speak. 20 million of shares. Please address your question to the State Property Fund. I'm responsible for formulation of public policy in the energy sector. I am responsible for functioning of this sector, but I'm not responsible for the property. Nauman first channel. Because of the decrease of oil prices, whether the gasoline prices will go down during this year. Of course, they will go down. Look at our website. There is explanation about the formula, how it will drop if this price, this oil price will become stable at this low figure. Of course, the gasoline prices will go down. In some gasoline networks, you observed the drop last week, and this week they continue to drop. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Dear colleagues, the